here from the Hungaroring. And I'm sure we are going to be in for what is to be an exciting couple of races. As the drivers have just started their laps through the very long left hand, and it's so important that you set up the run out of it for that right hander to carry the maximum straight down the speed as we come into what is a very difficult left hander. Extremely easy to cut it, and thankfully we have some fantastic news on the corner cutting front. We're now running strict rules, so you won't be seeing drivers into new racing lines. So I think everyone will be glad that I won't be complaining about that happening as much, because of course after Austria and Silverstone it was quite disgusting, and now this corner that right-handed driver's going to have to be very careful to make sure they don't extend. But at the moment we have Woody Racing in provisional pole as he comes around the very long and twisty left-hander, and now as he swings wide coming into the last corner, he's taken a very wide apex there. Looks like he's carrying lots of speed through the corner, and it's going to be Woody Racing to take pole position for the sprint race by half a second, and that's the biggest gap we have seen in quite some time. Of course, Bolt is in second, and King No Skill with a fantastic lap, only about 800ths off our championship leader, of course. And there we go, we're going to read out the classification now. With Woody Racing on pole, Bolt in second, King No Skill, really fantastic lap in third, Chazza in fourth, Chillikill in fifth, Val in sixth, a good lap there by Val, seventh is Sonics, eighth is Danny Bin Lahar, ninth is Hefford, 10th is Dougie Afroman, 11th is Testameister on the medium compounded tyre, 12th is Murcielago, 13th is Schechtefar, 14th JFD, and 15th is Skull TBD. As I've got to now open up the chat, as I've just seen that we have got a couple of messages. Right, as Gary now, of course, Bolt saying, not really a representative. Oh boy! We've got some heavy rain! Well, if things weren't going to be spicy enough, I think that this is going to spice it up even more. Heavy rain for our feature race here at the Hungaroring. And of course it's going to remain to see whether or not drivers will have to, if the weather's going to get a bit better, if they're going to have to go on dries. But certainly looking at the weather at the moment, they ain't going to be changing tyres off the wet compounded tyres, because it is absolutely teeming down. As I've just taken a drink of water, I'm going to need to do that a couple of times as we're underway for our formation lap, and let's just see how much the drivers are struggling on this formation lap. As Bolt also says in the chat, Skull got disqualified and it made me nervous of invalid. Well, I'm very happy that he's on strict now. We'll actually get a better view, a better understanding of who is actually who are the quicker drivers, as everyone now can't just go 2,000 miles wide, as after we've seen at Silverstone. And most drivers will, because of course when you can get away with it, you do it. So not blaming any of the drivers there. So they're now just coming through the middle sector chicanes. It's very tedious to go through this formation lap, but the middle sector is certainly going to be a key area of focus during this race. It's going to be oh so difficult for the drivers to go through, and one little mistake through that middle sector could end your race, as it is very tight and the barriers aren't too far away in that middle sector. And of course the curbs are very dangerous here at Hungary, and those curbs, I'm thinking especially of turn 4, are going to be even more dangerous indeed. Is now coming through the last couple of corners with a beautiful camera shot here. I'm not too sure who that is in the background. I'm assuming it's Skull, who's all of the way back there. Yep, indeed it is Skull. He's taking his jolly old time there. As the rest of the drivers are basically starting to line up on the grid now, so I'm sure a couple of drivers won't be too happy with Skull, and I've been criticised before in the league by doing that, but it is well within the rules to take a little bit of a longer time. As now all the drivers are lined up, and it looks like we're about to start going here, as hopefully we can get the good camera angle. And here we go, 2 lights, 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights, and lights out, and away we go. It looks like it was a very good start there by Bolt, and of course him having the inside line down towards turn 1 should be very helpful. But indeed, Woody Racing has already covered off the inside line, as there's also a very strong start there behind for, I believe it was Danny Ibn Lahar trying to go around the outside of Chillikilla, but he's just run a little bit wide. Meanwhile, Bolt struggling to catch the rear end there. Both drivers struggling to catch the rear end, as now Bolt is under pressure from Chillikilla as we head down in towards turn 2. And looking further back, Chaz has got his position up into 4th. As King No Skill, we've got a whole battle of bunch of cars here with Dougie Afroman, Danny Ibn Lahar and Val all squabbling for P5 here. But Woody Racing at the moment has built a little bit of a comfortable gap, as Danny Ibn Lahar is massively off circuit here, and drivers all touching that inside curb. You don't want to be doing that, because that is a death curb, that is for sure. As we have Murcielago passing Hereford for 12th place a little bit further back. But now, back towards the front, we have Woody Racing eventually coming into picture, about half a second ahead of Bolt TBD so far in this 19 lap feature race. As we're going to try and catch to see if Val can put his teammate under enough pressure and get past him for P6. And here we go, we're going to watch on board from Val just for a slight bit of a moment. Oh, he's run very deep there, and so has Danny Ibn Lahar. Dougie Afroman now might be able to get past Danny up the inside. No, I think he's hit in there indeed. There's front wing off. Danny's been hit wide, but Danny has maintained the position for the moment. But Dougie Afroman certainly does have front wing damage after that bit of contact there, and that's very costly early on in this race. Of course, it being wet, you're going to need all the downforce possible, and to lose some front wing very early on is a big mistake. As we're having a look at Chazza now, potentially making a move at Chillikilla, but he's not quite willing to make the move there down into turn 1, and actually loses quite a bit of time. Oh no, where's Chillikilla gone? I thought he was still in front of him, but he's gone wide, and now that's gifted Chazza 3rd place, and Chazza will be absolutely wrapped with that, as now Val and King No Skill are battling for position, as now Dougie Afroman and Danny Ibn Lahar are going now side by side, as Dougie Afroman's managed to get himself up into P5, and some blocking there by Dougie Afroman looked all legal to me as he gets up into P5. But that, you can see that front wing, him losing that front wing after hitting Danny Ibn Lahar at the second to last corner, really hurting him here. As now they're going to try to go side by side into the next chicane. Surely they can't do that, as we've had cars off in front. I believe that was Chillikilla and Chazza, as Val goes absolutely clonking over the curb. So that was a Dougie Afroman, of course. But we're seeing drivers struggling in that middle sector to slow the car down, especially in that chicane. As we're now coming towards the end of lap 2 in this race, and Woody Racing at the moment is starting to build a nice gap to Bolt. As just I was saying that, it's got very close there, as Dougie Afferman and Danny Ibn Lahar are still squabbling for position as Dougie Afferman's running wider and wider through every corner possible seemingly. As now Danny trying to go up the inside the final corner. Thought he was going to get pushed into the wall there. As we've seen very famously in league racing before, drivers going into that wall. And these two squabbling now have already got a 6-second gap, does Chiller Killer, to these two drivers. And Dougie Afferman surely not close enough to Danny Ibn Lahar here. And you can see how much Danny is, or Dougie I should say, is struggling here with that missing part of front wing. And surely his teammate Val has got to be trying to get past him as soon as possible, because this is really compromising some guys behind racers here. But Val will certainly be having to pay attention behind him here, as King No Skill is very close to the back of him. As it certainly doesn't look like it's getting any drier here at the Hungaroring. And we've seen some wet race classics before in F2 here at Silverstone, even last year as Danny Ibn Lahar's gone spinning off at the chicane. I was saying that the chicane was proving to find itself very difficult for the drivers, and there we have proof as Danny Ibn Lahar goes spinning, not off into the wall, but a mistake there, and that's promoted Dougie Afferman into 5th. Val up into the 6th and King No Skill into 7th, as Danny finds himself behind King No Skill at the moment. But at the front it is all tightening up between Bolt and Woody Racing, as the drivers are really struggling to keep the rear end in check here. And also Chazza is now starting to find himself into this battle. He was nearly 2 seconds behind this group when he got past Chiller Killer up into P3. But he now finds himself within a second, and of course, because it is wet, there's no DRS in this race. This is going to be extra hard to pass down the straight. But looks like in certain parts of the track, Woody Racing might just be struggling, and Bolt will be looking to capitalise on that. As we're going to go a little bit further back now, as Danny Ibn Lahar looking to try and make his way up into P7, brakes late. Looks like he's struggling to keep the rear end of the car under check there. He might have had a little bit of rear locking, as Val was trying to get past Dougie Afferman there. And Val, whoa, I was about to say, looking like he was going to go for a late lunge there on Dougie Afferman. That was never on. Oh, and I think we also have King No Skill going off wide there. And is he going to turn into the traffic? Oh boy, he has turned into some traffic there. Thankfully, the driver's seen it coming and was managed to avoid it. But, I mean, when Sebastian Vettel does it, you know, it's pretty easy for you to do it. You're not a full-time world champion. So, it's easily done. But that was poor there, as Skelt looking to get past Sonics up to move himself up into P10. As we have Testemeister in the pit lane, and also noticed that he had a 5-second time penalty. Or he had some sort of time penalty, as somehow Danny Ibn Lahar has managed to get himself past Val after all of this squabbling, and Danny now putting Dougie Afferman under some serious pressure for that P5, and surely it's only a matter of time before Danny does get past Dougie, as certainly in these corners coming up, Dougie is going to be struggling, of course, with that, well, with less rear wing. It was at this very corner where Val, or well, it was Dougie Afferman and Danny Ibn Lahar made contact. As we have now the top three exchanging fastest laps set by Woody, and then matched, or bettered I should say, by Chazza, who was only 6/10 behind his teammate in P3. As they head down towards turn 2, looks like the drivers are struggling, or using a multitude of lines through this corner. As you can see, Bolt going a little bit deeper there to try and get a better run out of the corner down onto the short straight before the left-hander starting the second sector. But looks like Chaz is looking very strong here in the wet. Always been renowned and known as a good wet weather driver, and now he's putting his teammate under quite a bit of pressure here. As you could hear a little bit of an inside locking there by Chazza. It's been good to see that the driver's been respecting track limits now with the strict corner cutting rules in effect now. as they come through now. Just as I was saying that, Val's got a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. And Bolt going a little bit wide there into that corner. And is this going to cost him now? As we're only a couple of corners away from the straight. Chaz has just got to keep within striking distance here. Getting very close up to the back of his teammate. And his teammate Bolt struggling with the rear end ever so slightly. Chaz are taking a very narrow line into the final corner. And he'll be hoping that it can gain him an advantage, and he loses the rear end ever so slightly there, does Chazza. And now that is cost him his opportunity of potentially getting past his teammate here, as Woody Racing sets the fastest lap of the feature race so far, and he now has a 1.5 second gap to second place Bolt here. But it looks like Bolt is struggling in these wet conditions, very often losing the rear end. Not massively, but just costing him time everywhere. And Chazza will be eager to get himself past and up into second place. As we're going to have a look a little bit further back, is Danny Abinla has managed to get himself past Dougie Afferman for P6, well, for P5, demoting Dougie Afferman to P6. Supreme effort there by Dougie Afferman to hold in to P5, or hold on to P5 for quite some time. As you can see through that right-hander, struggling with the fact that he has less downforce than everyone else. And his teammate surely has to be getting past him soon enough. As you can see, look how much more speed he's able to carry through the corners than his teammate. Oh, and Val's on that inside curb. Oh, and you can see how close it was to losing the whole entire car there just by going on that curb. It is so easy to spin, as Dougie Afferman's just got a 3-second time penalty. And King No Skill now has got a 3-second time penalty as well for multiple warnings. So even though it is wet, the drivers are struggling in these conditions to stay within the track limits, and Dougie Afferman really struggling here now. Surely Val's going to get past him here. Just starting the third sector now. He's got the inside line as well, and his teammate Dougie Afferman brakes late, or brakes early, and lets his teammate through. A good decision by Dougie Afferman. He's looking to fight it back with Val defending. I don't know why. Your teammate basically just let you through, and then he's still defending. But Murcielago is now looking to gain on the two teammates potentially having a bit of a misunderstanding as Bolt. What's happened to Bolt? Bolt and Chaz are going side by side here through turn 2. I wasn't quite aware of them going side by side, but there we go. We've got Bolt and Chaz are now really getting on with it. But this squabbling between the two Russian times is allowing Woody Racing to get further away. He now has a 2-second margin. As Testameister is just retired from the race, as we see his car actually pulling over just there. I just need to blow my nose. I'm sorry about this, but I'll be back just... As the leaders now come through the final corner onto the main straight. Don't think Chazza's within striking distance here, although he's doing a little bit of a Fernando Alonso, little fake to the inside. But I've noticed certainly that Chazza's taking a much more narrow line through a lot of these corners than Bolt. It seems to be working for Chazza at the moment, just saying that he's run a little bit wider. Taking a little bit of a wider line there. That's for sure than his teammate. But yeah, Chazza taking a bit more of a narrow line through most of the corners. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not with that approach, that if Chazza can get past his teammate or not. But just as we were saying that after these two have been squabbling, Woody's got that gap out to 2 seconds. It's been closed down to just just over a second. As Dougie Afroman, oh boy, as Val's absolutely steamed down the inside of Dougie Afroman. The two teammates squabbling once more. And Val finds himself ahead once more. But yes, we'll just go back onto this Bolt, and Bolt seemingly closing the distance to Woody Racing, the leader of the race. As now we have Murcielago up into 6th place somehow. Past Val, who has gone spinning off. I am assuming there's contact. Oh, and oh dear. Val spinning across the track. Disrupting Sonics, who, I don't know, he might have got some damage from that Sonics, as it did look like Val re-entered the track in a dangerous manner. As now Sonics is looking to put pressure on Val. Val again, after some contact, I can only assume with his teammate Dougie Afroman there. Unfortunate for the Italian driver. As now Dougie Afroman will be looking to get to close up to the back of Murcielago for 6th place. Dougie Afroman really is doing a sterling job here with that front wing damage to manage to even hold on to P7 at the moment. As now we're on lap 9 of 19 in this feature race here at the Hungaroring. It doesn't look like it's getting any drier or any wetter. It looks like it's just staying at a very wet level at the moment, as the driver's starting to look a little bit more comfortable here in these conditions. Starting to nail those apexes a little bit more and be a little bit more consistent, as it looks like the two Russian time drivers here are really starting to hunt down Woody Racing for the lead of this race. The gap is now under a second for the first time in quite a while. It's just saying that the gap is now back out to over a second, but it's certainly been the closest it's been since the opening couple of laps, as Chazza locks a brake there and runs a little bit wide, falling a little bit further back from his teammate. This is the first time we've actually seen Chazza a second behind his teammate for quite some time, as we've got Woody Racing coming into the pit lane, as well as Chazza now into the pit lane. Just as I said, the drivers were starting to look comfortable in this race. They've now come into the pit lane as well. I can only assume to be putting on more wet compound tyres, as Bolt very importantly sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix at 146.4. And let's see how the drivers go in the pit stop here. Looks like all smooth sailing here for Woody Racing, and also for Chazza, who I think gained a bit of time there in the pit lane. Yes, he certainly did. Chazza will be wrapped with that. He was about 2 seconds behind Woody Racing here, and now he's right up behind him, as we also have Danny Bin Lahar coming into the pits. But this is a crucial stage of the race, as Woody Racing has got to put in a fantastic outlap here, and Bolt on the other hand has got to put in a fantastic in-lap. And where is he? He's just coming up to the middle sector chicane here, and he's going to be pushing with everything he has. But in the last couple of laps, it looks like Bolt has managed to get into the groove of things, starting to really close the gap on Woody Racing. And I think he has a real opportunity here of getting past his rival here for the lead of the race. So now comes into the third sector. This difficult right-hander is an overtaking opportunity, but he does run a little bit wide there. I don't think he lost too much time, as he did carry a good speed through the corner. But now coming through this long and winding left-hander, which is very difficult on traction, as we've seen Bolt struggling there. But now Bolt comes into pit lane very cautiously, it must be said, on the entry. And is that cautious approach going to cost Bolt? And very cautious approach into the pit lane, and we've seen how much time Chazza actually gained on Woody Racing there. But now Bolt and also Chillakiller into the pit lane, as Chillakiller's actually got a 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. And here goes the completion of Bolt's pit stop. Whereabouts is Woody Racing? Woody Racing is coming down the main straight, and there we go. The first car on the right hand side is Bolt, Is Woody Racing going to come out ahead of Bolt? Yes, he is, and so is Bolt's teammate Chazza. The undercut working supremely for these two drivers, and Bolt has lost out massively with that, sliding all over the place coming out of the first corner, and he now finds himself 2.5 seconds behind Chazza and Woody Racing for P2 of this race. And I honestly think that's all down because of his pit entry. It looks like he had a very clean and fast actual in-lap, but I think his approach into the pit lane was a bit too cautious, not wanting to risk anything, not wanting to get a 5-second time penalty, which of course is fair enough. And I assume he's going to trust his driving skills here to close the gap to Chaz and Woody Racing to potentially still win this race, because who knows, he still could. Of course, our current championship leader here in the Formula 2 Nemesis Online Racing League Championship here, as Val looking to potentially make a move on Sonics here, but not into that very fast left-hander. That would be extremely dangerous if there were to be such a move. As Val's been involved in many squabbles so far this race, that's for sure. And Sonic's still running a little bit wide there, but still running a tribute helmet to Antoine Hubert. Very nice to see. The driver's still running a tribute. As Woody Racing sets the fastest lap of the feature race so far, 1:44.8, I believe. He's absolutely flying out in front with a 1.5, well, 1 second now gap to Chazza, but I think that's because Chazza went very deep into turn 1, and indeed he did, and also looked like his teammate. Oh, I thought we were going to see disaster there by Bolt. He lost the rear end, and I thought he was going to go careening into the wall, but Bolt struggling here as he runs very deep into turn 2 there. As Val has actually managed to get himself up into P5 past Sonics, I'm not too sure how, in the last sector of course, but he has got past Sonics for P5, and after Bolt's couple of little mistakes there, he's now 3 seconds behind Chazza, and on lap 12 and 19 it's going to be difficult for him to close that gap. It must be said, revving the engine completely there, not a fantastic sound to hear. Really struggling on traction there as Bolt's sliding around all the corners as he goes wide there through that right-hander. He missed the apex, and Bolt's falling further and further behind our championship leader. But of course, it's not like it's the end of the world. He's a P3. It's not bad, that's for sure. But of course, for our Russian time and our championship leader, he expects the best, and that is only P1. He's absolutely giving it his all, that's for sure. He's pushing. So he loses the rear end once again, and more so. Bolt really struggling here in these conditions, and he needs to make sure that he just gets himself to the end. I don't think he's going to... Oh, as he locks up here, runs massively wide. Our championship leader is really struggling here. And as I was just saying, he needs to just make sure he gets himself to the end here. I don't think he's going to get P2 at the moment. I just think that he needs to take a bit more of a cautious approach. He's not going to get caught by 4th. Just take P3, go home with the points, and what will be another good result in the feature race here. As there's not actually any action to call on circuit here at the moment, as there's no battling going on. The two closest drivers on track are Danny Bin Lahar and Sonics in the battle for P6. And speaking of that, Danny Bin Lahar very close to Sonics for P6 here. As Sonics has had a very poor run out of that right-hander as they head towards this very difficult left-hander. As Danny Bin Lahar has actually just cut the inside there, now he has a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings I'm sure we're going to see. quite a few drivers with some penalties as Danny Binlar fakes a move to the inside. And I thought Sonics was going to run deep there. Oh, and Danny Binlar nearly making the same mistake that he did earlier in the race, clipping that curb, losing the rear end. But I'm sure we're going to see some more battling between these two in the latter stages of this feature race, as now Chazza's closing the gap ever so slightly, lap by lap, to Woody Racing. And just as I said that, he didn't have the greatest exit there, did Chazza. 1.2 seconds between the two drivers, as his teammate, Chazza's teammate, Bolt, 7 seconds behind. Chaz and Woody Racing really have taken off in this second phase of the race after the one and only pit stop of the feature race here. 7 seconds behind his teammate. Not too used to saying that about Bolt so far this season. And he's still pushing it. He's still giving it all. Maybe perhaps a little bit too much, as we see him losing the rear end once more. But he catches it. I'm sure he's having quite a fun day actually, because of course one of the nicer feelings is catching the car when you lose the rear end. It is quite a rewarding feeling. But Chazza now really closing up to Woody Racing here. Just as it looked like he was starting to fall behind at the start of the lap, he's closed about half a second and is within a second here of Woody Racing, as we've got some traffic, I believe, of JFD coming up in front. Yes, it is indeed Woody Racing's teammate JFD. And is JFD going to get out of the way? He does indeed. Very well done there by JFD to get out of the way in a good spot. As the drivers struggling for traction out of the final corner, as they head down towards turn 1. Very difficult braking zone already, and really, honestly, my favourite dive bombing braking zone of this, well, out of all the tracks really. Of course, Daniel Ricciardo doing many famous dive bombs there at that corner. So we have a 3-second time penalty for King No Skill. I'm sure he won't be too happy with that. As we can see, Woody Racing so far is the fastest lap. And there you go, that really exemplifies how much Bolt's been struggling. The two drivers at the front, Woody Racing and Chaz, are fastest laps in the low, or the high, sorry, I should say 44s. Whereas Bolt's only managed a 46.3, so just not his day so far, Bolt, and I'm sure he'll be hoping for some dry running. As interesting that Val and Sonics have not pitted, that's for sure. Didn't actually notice that. It's going to be very close for those two to get back to the finish line, as Sonics has now got a 3-second time penalty for corner cutting as well. But Chazza really starting to put the pressure here on Woody Racing, as he got a pretty good exit out of that final corner, as he's closing a little bit here with the slipstream on Woody Racing. He does brake a lot later than Woody Racing, but he's still a bit too far back to make a move here. And a pretty good exit there for Woody Racing. Means that Chazza won't be able to have a look into turn 2. Of course, a very good overtaking opportunity is normally presented at that corner. You can either go down the inside or around the outside, whatever works best for you really. As now, with only a few laps left, as we now start to get into the latter stages of this feature race, lap 16 and 19, Chazza putting the pressure on Woody Racing here for P1. As in the last couple of laps, Chazza really has closed that gap and put the pressure on. As now we have Sonics finally coming into the pit lane after 16 laps. I assume that he's realised, I can't make these tyres last to the end, and he's coming for the pits, and I'm sure he'll rejoin in about 11th or 12th. But that will remain to be seen. Might even come out in 10th. So nope, P11 at the moment. As the drivers now come through the final corner. Chazza really does need to get a good exit out of the final corner if he has any hope of passing Woody Racing here, as Woody Racing has actually just set the fastest lap, a 1:44.6. It's turn 1. Chazza a little bit late on the brakes, as we've seen. As I do need a drink of water before my throat dies. As Doug Afferman's just got past Hefford for P8 there. Oh, and Woody Racing running wide there through that through the right-hander, and Chaz has really closed up to the back now, as we've got some traffic coming up in front of Skull, who gets out the way very well. But Chazza really all over the back now of Woody Racing, but he needs to be this close as they come through the final sector, coming onto the main straight. Chazza does look very strong though, that's for sure. Trying to fake a move here into this right-hander, which of course, if you are close enough, you can make a lunge down the inside, but of course Chazza nowhere near close enough at the moment, as Woody Racing taking a little bit of a wider line through that corner, and as we've noted earlier, Chazza taking a much tighter line through these corners than his fellow drivers. But looks like Woody Racing's got a pretty good exit here, and he should be safe from the attack from Chazza at the moment. Chazza, as you can see, he's a little bit frustrated, braking pretty late, getting quite a bit of time on Woody, and he needs a good exit here, does Chazza, if he wants to think about getting past Woody Racing. He's certainly going to have to make some sort of lunge, it looks like, if he wants to get past, and of course, I think that's because with no DRS, it's very hard to close in a straight line here. But Woody Racing surely has to be feeling the pressure now, as Chazza has been very close over the past number of laps. And myself knowing when you are leading a league race at these latter stages, it does start to become a very pressurised situation. As Chazza has got a 3-second time penalty. Exactly what Chazza did not need. I noted that he did go a bit aggressive over the curbing on that occasion, and that's resulted in a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. And unless Woody Racing has got a penalty that I've missed, or picks up a penalty, it looks like the battle for the race lead is over, sadly. As a little bit further back, there's some Murcielago and Danny Bin Lahar. Getting a little bit closer as Murcielago's closing in on Danny Bin Lahar for P6. But we will just now go back on to the battle for first place between Chazza and Woody, and Chazza making a very big lunge there down into turn 1. His last hope of anything, really. And Chazza, looks like he's tried very hard to get past Woody Racing, but it's just not been possible. These two have been super quick in this race, and as they've seen how they've gapped the race leader so much, well, not the race leader of course, the championship leader quite significantly. It shows just how good these two drivers' pace in these sort of conditions are. And kudos to both of them as Chaz closes up actually once again after his lunge at turn 1. So, just reading the chat now. I'm good to see you in here, JB, mate. Of course, a regular name for me and for Chazza over on Chazza's YouTube channel. Now, as we come through the final sector for the last time in Chazza, trying everything to get past Woody Racing. Way too far back there. But now as they come through the long and winding left-hander. And now on the short run to the final corner. The final corner is Chaz is trying everything, but to no avail. It's Woody Racing with a fantastic drive to win the feature race, followed by Chazza in second. And then a little bit further back is the Russian time teammate of Chazza. And of course our championship leader with another very good result here, Bolt, finishing in P3 as Danny Ibn Lahar and Murcielago are squabbling over P6 here. As Murcielago is really closed up on Danny Ibn Lahar over the last number of laps. And can he possibly make a move here? He certainly looks a bit more comfortable in these conditions than Danny Ibn Lahar. As Danny Ibn Lahar's gone massively off, he's off the track, and that has also forced Murcielago to run wide. But Danny Ibn Lahar with a massive mistake there, running wide at the left-hander, sorry, just before the right-hander. What's happened to Danny Ibn Lahar here? He can't stop his car. But that's gifted Murcielago P6 in this race, unless there are undue penalties. But Chillkiller finishes in fourth. Val, after much squabbling and battling during this race, comes home in P5. Murcielago to come home in P6, and Danny Ibn Lahar to come home P7. And then eventually Dougie Afferman, who seemed like he had the best pace in the midfield, is going to come home, and I'm sure what he'll be a little bit disappointed with there with the P8 result. But his points nonetheless. Hefford in P6, and then Schechtefar and King No Skill are the last two drivers to finish. So they come through. Well, King No Skill is actually quite a ways away, and I'm just wondering, has he run out of fuel here? I think that King No Skill's run out of fuel here, as he's getting lapped here by the AI cars who have already completed the race, and now coming through the final corner now. King No Skill had a very good qualifying, of course, in P3 he qualified, didn't he? But sadly not to be for King No Skill this time out, as he finishes in P11. And here we go, Woody Racing with what was a fantastic drive to win the feature race. Of course, on the podium with the usuals, the two Russian time drivers of Chazza and Bolt. A very familiar podium for those who join us regularly here. And can they, of course, with the reverse grid order, can they replicate the same podium second time around, as Woody Racing takes actually maximum points from the feature race with pole, fastest lap, and of course the race wins, so he'll be absolutely wrapped with that, as all drivers except for Woody Racing, Murcielago and Schechtefar have penalties. So disappointing that a lot of the drivers do have penalties, but it's certainly better to see than the drivers creating a new racetrack, that's for sure. As of it looks like for our sprint race here we're going to have dry conditions. So I assume that there's going to be one man who's going to be happy with that. And that will be Bolt, who did seem to be struggling in those wet conditions. As we're loading in now, as Lord Park III says, aren't pit stops mandatory? Val didn't make a pit stop. Let's see now, as we're just heading off for the formation lap. Let me go to the rules here. And indeed, in the rules, both tyre compounds must be used in the feature race, hence a pit stop is mandatory. So Val, I believe he's broken the rules here, and he might be disqualified from that race. Oh dear, that is of course you don't have to use both compounds of tyres when in the wet, but it does say here a pit stop is mandatory in the feature race. So Val, of course, good noting there by Lord Park III. I'm not too sure who you are as an actual driver, but yeah, I think you're right here. I think Val might cop a disqualification here. As with the reverse grid, we have Dougie Afferman on pole, Danny Rinlahan second, Murcielago third, Val in fourth, Chillicilla fifth, Bolt 6th, Chaz 7th, and Woody Racing in 8th, and then Hereford 9th, Schachterford 10th, King No Skill 11th, 12th is Sonics, 13th Skull, 14th JFD, and 15th Testmeister, and Lord Park the 3rd is Beamer Black. So nice to see you here again this week, mate. Thanks very much for joining us here on what is a bit of a seedy and early Sunday morning for me here in Australia. As JB asking, how does the sprint race grid get sorted? So it's just the reverse grid from P8 to P1 for the finishing. So of course Woody Racing won the race and he starts in P8. Dougie Afferman finished in P8 and he starts P1 as we're about to get underway for the sprint race here, and lights out and away we go, and a lot of wheel spin here for the drivers as it looks like Danny Binlahar's got a fantastic start as he's already passed Dougie Afferman down into turn 1, and he's clean ahead here as Murcielago trying to go around the outside of Dougie Afferman. It looks like he's managed to do it as Murcielago's lagging an absolute storm as Bolt's also there on the inside trying to get past. And it looks like he's going to get past Dougie Afferman. Very tight. And oh, there's been contact. And both of the cars are around. And the drivers have done a very good job there to avoid. There was contact, and we're going to have a virtual safety car between Bolt and Dougie Afferman there, as they're trying to go side by side through that right-hander. As Woody Racing is moved up into 4th place. But Chaz is all the way down in 8th. As the virtual safety car is still out. And let's see who the big winners and losers are from that. Big winners being Testmeister, who's all the way up into 7th place. Even ahead of Chaz. Chaz has lost out massively here. As we're back under racing here, and Woody Racing looking to try and get past Bolt here, but not quite. Very racy here early on as as Woody Racing locking up, losing the rear end as he has a car up his inside, I believe, a Chiller Killer. I didn't quite see that, but now Chiller Killer's run massively wide, has he? No, he hasn't, as Chazza has moved up into 7th place, and who's dropped down the order there? Because Chazza is now up into 7th place. I've missed that, actually. It's Chiller Killer looking to go up the inside of Woody Racing, but not quite. It's Testo closed in there. But Danny, with already a 2.5 second lead, pretty much, over the Russian time. Bolt. It's very close, but from P3 down to well, really to P10. Fantastic here as Bolt and Woody Racing trading spots. Has got Murcielago and Chiller Killer here. Well, Murcielago, I must say, is lagging all over the place, and I hope that's not the case for the drivers, because there's nothing worse than having a laggy car, as I think that was Chiller Killer who actually cut the chicane, as Chazza somehow got past Testameister and all of that. I'm not too sure how, as Hereford's dropped down the field quite substantially here, as there's a bit of front wing there, chicane in the middle sector. Too sure what's gone on there, but Hereford down in P15 as we have Sonics getting up past King No Skill up into P8. But boy oh boy wowee, I've just noticed that Bolt has closed massively as Chazza up the inside of Chiller Killer at the final corner, if you don't mind. An absolute rip snorter of a move there by Chazza to get up into P5 as Chiller Killer's launched it from a mile back and got past Chazza once more. Chazza certainly didn't expect that, and now Chazza's going to be looking to get past Chiller Killer immediately. He's going to set it up the inside of turn 2, and it looks like it's going to be nip and tuck here between who's going to stay ahead, and it's going to be Chiller Killer who launched from an absolute mile back on Chazza. He didn't expect that, did Chazza? As Chazza maintained P6. As just as we were saying, Danny has a lead of 2.5 seconds. Well, the gap is now 0.4 of a second as Bolt has closed the gap massively here. And I said he'd be happy that there's that there was dry weather, and it looks like he certainly is happy here, as the top 3 is separated by about half a second here. As Bolt actually runs a little bit wide there, it's going to allow Woody Racing to get up the inside of Bolt. Is it down into this right hand of Woody Racing on the inside line as they go side by side? They get glued together there, and now Bolt with the inside line for that left-hander is going to maintain position. It also looks like Murcielago is now coming under threat from Chiller Killer, as Chaz has actually fallen back a little bit towards Testameister, so I'm wondering if Chazza has some front wing damage after the contact there between himself and Chiller Killer. As Woody Racing lunging and in contact with Danny Bin Lahar, and now after that Bolt has taken the lead this race. Woody Racing misjudging his braking zone there, trying to get past Bolt, but broke too late, went into the side of Danny, and both actually quite lucky that there wasn't actually more damage, and they didn't come off worse up from that contact there. As now Chazza going around the outside of Murcielago. Murcielago does break a little bit later and basically allows Chazza through to once again pursue, overtaking Chiller Killer here. There's Testo trying to go around the outside of Murcielago, though at the chicane that's not going to happen. That's for sure, but after that contact between Woody Racing and Danny, that has set free Bolt, who now has a 1.5 second lead this race, and we've seen the Bolt looks very autonomous and very quick in the dry conditions here at the Hungaroring, and I expect him to now, if Woody can't get past Danny on the main straight here. As Woody's locking up and going deep into a lot of braking zones here. But it's going to be absolutely critical for Woody's race that he gets past Danny here on the straight. And Chaz has got past Chiller Killer again in the final quarter, as Chiller Killer's gone massively wide there. As now they're side by side down the pitch straight, a little bit of squeezing going on between these two. It's getting all a little bit heated here, but Chazza with the inside line looks like he's going to manage to keep his position ahead of Chiller Killer, and with the DRS out of turn 1, it looks like he's going to hold on to P5, but Chiller Killer launching from some way back once more, but not quite this time, as he now settles for P5 behind Chazza. As now Chazza will be looking forward to Woody Racing, who I just said it was critical that he got past Danny Bin Lahar, and he has not got past Danny Bin Lahar here for P2. And Woody actually seems to be struggling a little bit with some locking up of the front tyres here. As I need to blow my nose once more here. Be with you guys just shortly. And I'm back, as we have Woody Racing still a little bit too far back from Danny Bin Lahar down the main straight, and it looks like Chaz is showing some tremendous pace in this race, as he's closed the gap to Woody Racing and Danny Bin Lahar now. The gap is just close to about 1.5 seconds, and indeed that confirms that Chaz has been closing, as now the gap between Bolt and Danny is out to 3 seconds, or 3.5 seconds now. Looks like it's going to be very hard for anyone to beat Bolt here. A little bit of the normal service resumed with what looks to be a Russian time on the way to dominating a race, as Woody Racing loses the rear end there, and Chazza is now going to be in prime position to pounce here for P3. Woody Racing just struggling a little bit in these dry conditions, more than what he did in the wet, as Chazza gives him a little bit of a love tap there through the middle sector, but Chazza with a pretty good exit. Is he going to launch it up the inside, Chazza? He puts his nose up there, but decides better of it in the end. But Chazza now surely, with Woody Racing seemingly locking up into every single corner, struggling to keep the car on the track, is going to get past Woody here for P3, and I thought we were going to see another Chazza move up the inside the final corner, as we've seen him produce, I think, twice on Chiller Killer so far. But now with the DRS and the slipstream, Chazza is gaining and gaining down towards turn 1. He makes the lunge up the inside. Is he going to get the move done on Woody Racing? Indeed he is. Well, we can't actually see. They're side by side. Woody Racing very aggressively cutting off the inside line. But now Chazza trying to go the long way around the outside this corner. And it looks like it's not going to pay off for Chazza. Woody Racing with some very aggressive but fair defending there. Coming back across in front of Chazza on the run down to turn 2. And he maintains P3 for the moment. Some fantastic defending there, it must be said, as Murcielago is gaining on Testmeister. And I must say, all credit to Murcielago. This is probably one of his stronger performances on an F1 game I have seen in quite some time. So kudos to Murcielago there, as we're really going to pay attention once more to these guys battling for P3, Chazza and Woody Racing, as our Bolt really is doing a fantastic job. Gap of 5 seconds now, as we're on lap 7, about to start lap 8 of 14, halfway through this sprint race. And Chazza certainly very close to Woody Racing here, but I think Woody Racing might be saved by the fact that Danny Bin Lahar has some DRS, as they now head down the main pit straight. As we can see there, Woody Racing has some DRS, moves back over to the racing line just before they start braking for turn 1. Everything all nice and legal there, but I think one of these drivers is going to have to get past Danny first. before we see some proper squabbling going on once more. And it looks like Woody Racing is going to do that in the next couple of laps, potentially. As these drivers now starting to catch Danny. Oh, and a bit of a lock up there once more by Woody Racing. And quite funny, as we've seen both of the drivers spin, Danny and Woody coming out of that chicane will certainly make mistakes, as we've got a couple of penalties here. As Val picks up a 3-second time penalty here, but Shazza and Woody now putting pressure on Danny. Been half of P2 of this race here, as Woody's really closing up, running a bit wide there. Thought Chaz was going to pounce, but he didn't run quite wide for that to happen. Woody's really going to be looking to get past Danny Bin Lahar, but a little bit of a poor run into the final corner, about what looks to be a supreme exit out of the final corners. Chazza is actually gaining more than Woody Racing is on Danny Bin Lahar. Chazza fakes a move up the inside as Woody Racing sits behind Danny Bin Lahar for what looks like to be another lap, and losing the rear end out of the exit of turn 1. That's certainly not going to do him any favours in hunting down Danny Bin Lahar. I thought he was going to go deep there, but he managed to hold himself behind Danny Bin Lahar as well. Lap 9 now, as the squabbling between Murcielago and Testameister for P7. And it looks like Val might be joining in on this battle soon enough, as the side by side down towards the end of the first sector here. Didn't quite get a good view of that because of the camera angle, but Testo moves himself up into P7. It's now going to go back to the battle for second place, and was being a ding-dong battle, I'm sure will continue to be, as Woody runs quite wide there, and surely Chazza is going to capitalise on this mistake here by Woody Racing. No, he thinks better of it for the time being. He's got to hope that Woody doesn't have DRS here on Danny, but it looks he's certainly well within a second. I'm not sure what I'm thinking. I've just done a crofty there. But Chazza, as Woody has the DRS, he's going to have to get a supreme exit out of the final corner to have a chance of getting past Woody. And that is the closest we've seen Chazza to the rear end of Woody Racing as they head down towards turn 1. Is Chazza going to make a move? No, he's not. He stays behind for the time being, but we've seen Woody Racing struggle with the rear end out of turn 1, but not this time, as Woody's actually closed quite a bit on Danny there. But Danny doing a good job of maintaining second place for the time being, as he's certainly going to have to do a very good job to stay ahead of these two for the remainder of the race. Actually haven't had to see him do too much defending, Danny, so he's done a good job. As they come through the chicane, as they get very close to each other, do Woody and Danny. So close here between these three drivers for the battle of P2, as everyone is so close together. It's a miracle that there hasn't been more contact, or contact indeed, as Woody Racing fakes a move up the inside there of Danny, but Danny was not fazed by that little fake there. Oh, as Woody runs very deep there on Danny, and I thought there was going to be some contact there. But Bolt sets fastest lap of the sprint race on 131.619, but Chazza, he's all over the back of Woody Racing here, and surely he's got to get a move done here. Is Chazza. He goes to the inside. Does he get the move done? A little bit of wheel banging there between the two. Who's going to come out on top? Woody Racing still ahead for the time being, and there's some yellow flags in Sector 2. I thought Chazza was going to get it done, but once again, Danny Bin Lahar playing a massive role in this battle between Chazza and Woody Racing. But Chazza with a fantastic exit out of that right-hander. Is he going to try and get a move done on that left-hander? No, not quite. looks like Chaz is starting to get a little bit desperate here, and he knows he has to get past Woody here soon. Otherwise, he might not get P2, which I'm sure is his goal at this stage of the race. As Val and Skull are battling for P8, with also Murcielago involved. As Skull has managed to somehow find himself up into P8. Good drive here by Skull. I can't remember him being close to these two, so good job to close these lot down. That's for sure. As Chazza once more is closing in on Woody Racing. Oh, and as Woody Racing run wide there, we've got to see Chazza up the inside the final corner once more. But if we thought he was close on the final race, on the last lap, he's even closer this time. With the DRS and the slipstream on Woody Racing, Chazza's going to have to lunge from some way back, but Woody Racing does some good late braking there to stop Chazza from doing that. And Chazza just can't find a way past Woody Racing at the moment, as we've seen in the first race. He can't get his way past. And I'm sure he's very annoyed at that, as we've got Val and Murcielago squabbling over P9. As Schechterfeld's got a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. As I've just noticed now, Danny's holding this bunch up quite a heap now, that even Chiller Killer is closing in on this battle. He's just about a second and a half behind. And now, as we're about to start, well, once we get through the final sector, as we're about to start the penultimate lap of the sprint race, I assume we're going to be seeing some fireworks here in the coming laps. Yep. There's Chazza, Woody and Danny all so close together. Once more, and Danny and Woody both lose the rear end here, and surely Danny is going to be in big trouble here. He's going to be facing the wall of Woody as he defends the inside line. Does Danny? Woody trying to go around the outside. Danny gives him the room on the outside line, then squeezes him. Oh, there's contact between Danny and Woody Racing. Woody Racing is off the track, and somehow Chazza has done a very good job there to not get, well, caught up really in that, as he had Woody Racing coming straight towards him. Very lucky that Chazza did not get collected there, but Woody Racing seems to be okay. He's in down in P5, about a second and a half behind Chillikill there. But now Chazza's main focus from getting past Danny Abinlahar, who's lost the rear end there through the chicane. But he's not able to get past that for the time being, is Chazza. But surely with Danny taking that line through that corner in the middle sector, Chazza's going to get past. And finally past Danny Abinlahar up into P2. He's given a valiant effort, really, to hold on to P2 for such a long time. As now he's going to have to be defending in the coming laps from Chillikilla, and also who knows if Woody Racing is able to close up. But forget next couple laps, it is the final lap of the sprint race here, so we had Woody Racing running massively wide. And also I did just remember that Danny does have a 3-second time penalty after he ran a little bit wide coming out that right-hander in the first sector. But Chazza, I'm sure he's delighted to be away from Woody Racing for the first time tonight, up into P2, 11 and a bit seconds behind his teammate. But our focus is going to be on the battle for P3, as Woody Racing now has a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. As Chillikilla now looks like he's going to be destined for third place, as now he's got a very good run here on Danny Abinlahar. Danny seems to be struggling with his tyres quite a bit here. It's going to be very difficult for Chillikilla to be able to get past here, in these remaining corners. There's only really one corner that you can overtake in. Although I would have thought that, but we've seen Chaz somehow overtake Chillakilla twice through the final corner tonight. So who knows? But now we'll go on to our race winner here. Our championship leader extends his lead with this win here in the sprint race. A brilliant drive by Bolt. Domination from start to finish. And he'll be delighted with that result, that's for sure. As Chazar comes home now in P2. Danny will come across the line in P3. And it looks like he's going to stay P3 actually, as Chillakilla and Woody Racing also had some penalties. King No Skill in 6th with a better result than what he had in the feature race. Skull comes home in 7th place, a fantastic result. Oh no, it's P8 in the end. He misses out with a time penalty by half a second there. Val comes home in 9th, Murcielago 10th. Dougie Aframan after the contact on lap 1 in P11. And then JFD and Shektafar will eventually come home for P12 and 13th. But we certainly did see some fantastic battling there going on between Chazza, Woody, Danny, Chillakilla. The whole bunch of them did put on a great show for us here tonight. And JFD comes across the line for P12. And Shektafar will eventually for P13. As he smashes into the wall. And here we go, a familiar sight as the Russian time drivers take up 1st and 2nd place on the podium. And of course, with Chillakilla with a fantastic result in P3. And here we go, we're going to see the final classification here very shortly. And there we go, a whole bunch of penalties for a whole bunch of drivers here, as of course with the implementation of the strict corner cutting penalties and a track where it's very easy to cut some, to just run a little bit wide or cut an apex, very easy to do so. But Bolt wins the sprint race here, followed by his teammate Chaz, Danny Binlahan 3rd, Chillakilla 4th, 5th is Woody, 6th King No Skill, 7th Testmeister, Skull in 8th, Val in 9th, Murcielago 10th, Dougie Aframan 11th, JFD 12th, 13th Shektafar, and 14th was Hereford. But that is being it for tonight, guys. Some fantastic battling, some fantastic display racing, and drama all round, of course, with the rain very, very early on in the feature race. And thanks for joining and for watching the stream. And that's all from me, Niblo. And we'll see you next week for round number 9 of the Nemesis Online Racing League Championship, which I believe is going to be the Belgium Grand Prix. So it's certainly going to be a very good race, that is for sure. So until then, we'll see you guys later.